Well, the rabbi's going to be from there.
Okay.
So far, sun's straight up, so I think we'll be okay shade wise. For mom, I brought an umbrella, so at least she's under some shade.
Oh, thank you.
Okay. And
Okay.
then I do have a couple extras, so if anybody gets overheated.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, this is good. We'll just put this
Yeah.
distance.
That's perfect. family please come on up behind the chairs? Wherever you like, girl.
Over here, maybe usually here. You're closer to the speaker. Yes. Closer to the speaker.
Ladies and gentlemen, please stand behind the chairs. If you're not in the same household, please practice social distancing.
Can we take our masks off while we're speaking or no?
Yes, because you're downwind.
What?
If you wish to, you're downwind.
You want some, Joe?
Michael.
Is the umbrella up?
Yeah, I don't know.
Our service is about to begin. I could ask you to please take a moment to turn any cell phones you may have to their silent mode at this time. Officiating our service today is Rabbi Shlomo Tenenbaum. Thank you.
We'll start with a blessing that is customary to say when we come to the cemetery, and I'm going to read it in Hebrew and then translate it in English. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher yotzar eschem badin v'zon v'chilkel eschem badin v'hemis eschem badin, v'yodea mispar kulchem badin v'osed l'hachayoschem l'kaim eschem badin, Baruch atah Adonai mechayeh hamesim.
Amen.
Blessed is God, King of the universe, who gives us life with a purpose, nourishes and sustains us with a purpose, and brings us back to our original source at the right time. And God knows the sum total of how long we're supposed to be here, what our job is in this world, and God will restore and resuscitate us also when the time is right. Blessed is God who resuscitates the dead.
Amen.
And it's in Jewish belief that although the body is temporary, the soul is eternal. And so when we say goodbye to somebody, we're saying goodbye to the body, but the soul, our belief that the soul will go to heaven and be rewarded, and eventually God will bring back those souls also, and we'll all be reunited with the people we love. We'll say the Psalm 23. I'll read it in Hebrew and then we'll say it together in English. It's on the card. Mizmor LeDavid Adonai Roi Lo Binos Deshi Arbitzeni Almei Menuchos Yina'aleini Nafshi Yeshoive V'yancheni B'magul Tzedek L'man Shemo Gam Ki Elech V'getz Almovas Lo Iro Ro Ki Atoi Modi Shivtecho Mishantecha Heme Yinachamuni Tarach L'fone Shulchan Neged Tzorarai Dishanta B'Shem Roshi Kosi Rivayo Ach Toiv V'Chesed Yurdafuni Kol Yimei Chayai V'Shafti B'Meis Adonai L'Orech Yomim. And join me on the page here, the 23rd Psalm. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside still waters. He restoreth my soul. He guideth me in straight paths for his name's sake. Though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I fear no evil. For thou art with me. Thy rod, thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in full view of my enemies. Thou hast anointed my head with oil, my cup runneth over. Surely goodness and kindness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. We're here today to say goodbye to Yaakov Leib, and your father's name again?
Chaim Shalom.
Chaim Shalom. And I think we're all in shock. There's this mother saying goodbye to a son, brother saying goodbye to a brother. I think each of the brothers wants to say a few words. So I'm going to, by chronological age, ask each brother to come up and share some thoughts and words. Yeah, I'm going after.
Okay.
As my older brother, you probably never knew this, but growing up, I always looked up to you. That was mainly because you were about an inch taller than me. Although throughout the years, I must now reluctantly admit that we were not always the closest of brothers, especially when it came as far as Chicago baseball was concerned. Baseball, remember that sport? However, we shall eternally and symbolically always remain close, being that Jerome Street in Chicago and Evanston is only about a block south of Howard Street. Although Jerry was not a traveler and never actually flew anywhere to visit any out-of-town relatives, family was still important to him. Although he was never married nor had any children of his own, he adored his nieces and nephews, Michael, Lauren, Brian, and Alyssa, all of whom are here today, as he would sometimes affectionately refer to them as, quote, Jerry's kids. In addition, he was ever so proud of his two great nephews, Theo and Bryce, especially the way that he used to glow and brag about little Theo to his barber, of all people. The Passover holiday in our household will no longer be the same without his physical presence. However, he will forever remain with us all in spirit, as we shall now pay tribute to him at future Seders with an extra serving of bitter herbs and chlorine. It's like horseradish for anybody that doesn't know. In addition, we will also honor his memory at the Seder table by making sure that we wash our hands for at least 20 seconds. Education was very important to Jerry. He talked obsessively in recent years about returning to school at Northwestern University in Evanston. Unfortunately, that dream of his never came to fruition once we all told him about the cost of their tuition. Upon graduating from Niles West High School in 1968, he then went on to college at the then fledgling campus of UIC in Chicago. He eventually graduated about 7 years later with a degree in civil engineering. Unfortunately, due to circumstances as well as numerous obstacles in his life, he never actually put his degree to practical use. However, as an alum of the UIC Flames, we will now light their symbolic flame in the form of a Yortzeit candle in his honor and memory. All of those that knew Jerry were fully aware of his affinity for Neil Diamond. He was very proud to share the same middle name as him, Leslie. At this time, in accordance with the Jewish tradition, I am now dressed here today wearing a simple black suit. However, in his memory, he would probably now much rather prefer that I be dressed forever in blue jeans. Jerry was born on Wednesday, September morn, but in reality, he wound up being the ultimate solitary man. Now that he has entered the hereafter, he is probably now singing those Neil Diamond classics, such as Hello Again to Dad, along with the tune America to our immigrant grandparents, Joseph, Elizabeth, and Harry, as well as Crackin' Rosie to Grandma Rose. Finally, as I recall, our parents' 50th wedding anniversary, which took place back in 1999, at that time I remember that he got up and spoke, which I taped with my camcorder and still have it being transferred from VHS tape to DVD. In his speech to Mom and Dad, Jerry said, quote, I will not love you for the rest of your lives, but rather for the rest of my life. In that spirit, we will always love you for the rest of our lives. Amen.
Thanks, Rabbi. It's an honor for me to say a little bit about my brother Jerry. for the past few weeks, I've had some time to reflect and to think about Jerry and to maybe understand him a little bit better than I did. As I reflected and attempted to walk a mile or even a block in his shoes, there was something I couldn't grasp, something I just couldn't get my arms around. And that is, how did he do it? How did he possibly manage through all these years on his own, day by day? What drove him to be sure to maintain his health, his wits, his state of mind, or else something bad could happen? What drove him when he didn't have those things that help drive other people? After all, like how we said, he never did walk down the aisle and stand under the chuppah. He never got that big promotion or closed that big deal or drive a new car. He never really took that dream vacation to the tropical island or the beach or a cruise or even that weekend getaway to recharge the batteries. You see, Jerry never took a day off. He couldn't afford to take a day or even sometimes an hour off. Going back to his childhood, teenage years, high school, moving out to finish college, and even the past 40-some years of adulthood. So what drove him? How did he do it? Why did he do it? I have a couple reasons, perhaps. First, Jerry understood a long time ago that tomorrow was not promised to him. Tomorrow is not a guarantee. He would have to plan, document, detail everything, every appointment, medication, phone conversation, written down and detailed, like a soldier going into battle. I'm so proud of him. You know, here I am going about my life, and there's Jerry on the front line, facing the fire every day just to get by. For the past, I'd say 20 years or so, there was a running theme in our conversations and voicemails. He would say, when my time comes, or if something ever happens to me, right? And I would say, Jerry, don't worry so much. You're fine. But Jerry was nobody's fool. He knew better. So he wrote everything down like a life's diary for others and for himself, just in case. As Jerry was preparing his ultimate battle a month ago, he told the nurse, I'm going to beat this. And why would we have any doubts he wouldn't? He had won every battle up to that point, and he fought them with courage, grace, and dignity. And that is why Jerry, my oldest brother, is the bravest person I know. The second reason, and probably more important, I believe is how we did it was family. Each of us, all of us. Family was everything. Family was his life. And he didn't want to disappoint us. Jerry was very blessed to have us. And we were very blessed to have him. I got the chance to talk to one of the doctors at St. Francis a few weeks ago. And he happened to be the same doctor that treated him the month prior for a broken foot. The doctor was fixing him up so he could go back to his apartment, to his home. And he said, you know, Jerry is a real good guy. And all he talked about was his family. His mother, who's now 96. He said he had 3 brothers and a sister. Amy, after years of being there for Jerry, especially this last year, yes, you qualify as a sister. When it came to family holidays and simchas, Jerry always rose to the occasion, just like how we said. Just the anticipation of it, Jerry could hardly contain himself. But what Jerry loved the most was being an uncle. He was so proud of his nieces and nephews. I know he was. Here's a card he kept on top of his table, and there they are, all 7 of them, with their names and their birthdays. This is Jerry, once again, writing it down, not leaving things for chance. Yet another lesson Jerry taught me. He was the real deal. And when it came to bar mitzvahs and weddings, Uncle Jerry shined, literally beaming with pride. Billy, Maria, and Gabby, you know, there was no doubt. You clearly saw that. Kids, you made Uncle Jerry so very happy and proud. And for me, nothing made me happier than seeing Jerry with that big smile and bellowing out that laugh, that loud laugh of his. This is what I believe kept him going each and every day. This is why he kept up the good fight. I'm so grateful, as mom as well, to every person who helped and loved Jerry along the journey during the last 69 years. Those who pitched in to assist, give a ride, lend a hand, or just lend an ear to listen. Wonderful friends and cousins, dear aunts and uncles, rabbis, social workers, volunteers, and our true heroes, brave and always compassionate medical staffs. You all meant the world to Jerry. And finally, Superman was Jerry's favorite movie. You know, the guy fighting for truth and justice, just like Jerry actually. Jerry always fought for the truth, spoke the truth, wasn't afraid of the truth, never backed down from the truth. Maybe he looked up to Superman because he was invincible, had superpowers, and won every battle he fought. Jerry, I'm comforted in knowing that you don't need to fight anymore. Not to worry, you'll always be my Superman. And this is now your time to rest and be at peace, finally.
Thanks, Bob. Never knew I had a sister. We're here to say goodbye to Yaakov Leib Ben Chaim Shalom, affectionately known as Jerry, my dear big brother, devoted son, and beloved uncle. You know, one might want to say that Jerry was shortchanged in life in many ways. Many ways. Not just in years, but how he struggled to survive. Like my brother mentioned, uphill battle. And as a brother, I was able to feel his pain. How do I know? Because when you're in pain and it hurts, you cry. I've cried many times throughout my life for him. And I was wondering why, as a young boy, why the Almighty put him in such a difficult situation. Why did it make it so hard for us and so hard for him? And then as I got older, I was thinking perhaps maybe there was a higher person, a higher purpose. Nothing in this world is per chance. So I came to the conclusion perhaps maybe it's a lesson for us to make us stronger, to teach us to be givers, more sensitive, more patient, and have more compassion. It certainly helped me. And perhaps we can be comforted that we learn from our sages that the more one suffers in this world, it means it actually works as an atonement as one is spared from suffering in the next world. And maybe even entering the world of eternity on a clean slate, where he'll be greeted by the neshamas, the souls of our loving family, Dad, Grandpa Harry, Grandma Rose, Pa, Bubby Leah, among other loved relatives. My parents have tried so hard to help Jerry function in life. When I was young, I once came across my father's old check register, and the numbers spoke for itself. One doctor to another, hospital, therapist. There was a lot of tension in our home You can imagine with 4 boys in the family. And Jerry being the lone diehard Cub fan of the 4 brothers didn't help matters. That was not part of his illness. Jerry was a very bright man and had a brilliant mind. As my brother mentioned, he was a straight A student throughout his educational years, through his first year of college, when he succumbed to an illness. But despite his setbacks, he was able to get back on track and eventually graduated by completing his degree in civil engineering for the University of Illinois Chicago Circle campus. And while he never got the opportunity to put his degree to use, he was able to find gainful employment during his formative years. Jerry was a very devoted son. When Dad passed away, Jerry was by Mom's side the whole time during that period. And he didn't stop there. Because with the exception of the time that he was in the hospital, he called Mom every day until the end to check on her. I remember once when he said to me after Dad passed away, he said, "Joey, who's going to run the Passover Seder now that Dad's gone?" So he took that project upon himself, and he took this initiative very seriously so that the transition at the family Seder can be as smooth as possible. Jerry was the oldest of the brothers, as mentioned before. He was known as the firstborn male, known as the Bachor. Along with the title of the Bachor comes special privileges as well as certain responsibilities. One of the obligations of the firstborn is to fast the day before Passover as an expression of gratitude that the firstborn were spared in Egypt. Nowadays, to avoid fasting, we now have a custom to participate in the celebration of a completion of a section of learning Torah called a Siyam, where they serve a meal to break the fast. So years back, I spoke with my father, blessed in memory, who my father was also a Bachor. He was also the firstborn male. He once shared with me that when Jerry was young, he used to take Jerry to shul the morning before Passover for services and to participate together in the breaking of the fast. And I can tell from looking at my father that he got so much nachas, so much joy and pride, as this was a way that he was able to connect with his firstborn son. Jerry had a special soul. Throughout the years, he used to share with me about how much he enjoyed attending services at his neighborhood synagogue Sephardic congregation. He would call me to let me know whenever he had questions about davening, of praying, and when he wanted to get in a routine of daily prayer, and even putting on tefillin. Even when he was in the hospital recently, where one is usually absorbed with their physical health, he had the wherewithal to requested a nurse that they only serve him kosher meals, and they asked for his yarmulke, his kippah, especially when it came to Friday night. So I guess that's his way of welcoming in the Shabbos Queen. At this point, I want to give special thanks to the Ark, who for many, many years was Jerry's home away from home, where they assisted him in numerous ways you cannot imagine. And most importantly, giving him the opportunity to sustain himself in a social life and to live with dignity. At this point, I want to ask forgiveness from my brother Jerry if I did or said anything wrong to harm him, which seemed almost like every day. It was certainly nothing personal or intentional. I only tried to do what was best for you and make your life a little easier. So I ask you grant me mechila, ask for forgiveness. I would like to end with a story. A few years back, when Jerry's mind was relatively stable, I asked him, "Hey Jerry, how would you like to come daven with me on Sundays at my shul? You'll help us with the minyan." I was always hesitant to ask him because of his history of unpredictable reactions. But to my surprise, he actually took it very well, and he took me upon that offer, and he even looked forward to joining me. So for a period of time, I would leave a half hour before services started, and on a regular basis on a Sunday, I drive to his apartment, meet him at the corner of Howard and Rockwell, and drive him to 6045 North California at Mishnah Gomorrah, where we had services. Rabbi Weinschneider, who's here, was gracious enough and immediately befriended him. But their friendship didn't extend beyond that. Yeah, where he would even bump into Jerry at Jewel, where he'd offer him to take a ride, and Jerry would, so he would have to take a bus, and Jerry would take up that offer. I was always worried if and when Jerry would act up in shul, but so to my surprise, he would sit quietly in the back, not disturb anybody, unless he would ask what page we were on, as he always wanted to try to follow along. So I help out in the synagogue in a number of custodial duties, and one of them is the position of Gabbai, calling up congress to the Torah. So one Sunday was Rosh Chodesh, a mini holiday where we celebrate the new moon, where we read from the Torah. So I had an opportunity to call up Jerry, my own brother, to the Torah for an Aliyah. So when you normally call up someone to the Torah for an Aliyah, you call by the person by his Hebrew name, followed by his father's name. So for Jerry's case, it would be Ya'amod Yaakov Leib Chaim Shalom. But when a brother calls up his own brother to the Torah, we substitute the father's name with the expression Avi Mori, which means my father, my teacher. So when I called out Jerry that Sunday, Rosh Chodesh, Ya'amod Yaakov Leib ben Avi Mori. It's just so hard for me to put into words how connected I felt with Jerry and my father of blessed memory as he recited the blessings over the Torah while he was hovering over the Torah as if the Torah was protecting us while giving nachas to my father while he's reciting those blessings. My father, especially later in life, would always refer to Jerry as my number one son. Jerry, you will always be number one in our hearts. And just like I was privileged to give you an aliyah to the Torah, so may your neshama, your soul, constantly have an aliyah, an elevation. May your memory be a blessing. Yehi Zichron Baruch.
I want to say something. Joe, bring me up to the podium. I want to say something.
I might be able to bring this to you.
Yep.
Hold on,
Here.
you sit down.
Oh, I could be sitting down. Yeah. You know, I wasn't planning to say anything, but last night I started going through some of the pictures so we could display it at the house when we go back to the house of Shiva. And I came across my album from my 90th birthday, and as true to Jerry's past, he would always send me not a bought birthday card, but a written birthday card, usually on a 3x5 index paper card, and where I put in all the birthday cards from all my friends and relatives. I came across Jerry's card, and he wrote, "Mom, thank you for being 90." I thought it was so beautiful, just so typical of him, because he really appreciated me. And all these little cards that he would send, he would tell me, "You're the best mom, and I love you." And he showed so much affection to me that I really had a very good relationship with him. And I just wanted to share that with you. Bye.
I'm not a Bulgatz brother, but Joe has been like a brother to me for many, many decades. So I'm honored to be here today. I had a connection with Jerry over the years, and eulogies always start out with "We are gathered here today," you know, and the truth is with Jerry, we were always gathered, meaning, you know, we were a team, and all of us, you know, he needed you know, it took a village, and every one of us did our little part to try to get him through. And truth be told, you know, like it was said, it was really heroic how he got to the finish line. You know, we wish he would have had a couple more decades under his belt, but he got to the finish line independently. You know, recently Joe and I were on the phone when maybe 8 weeks ago, 10 weeks ago, when Jerry was having some issues with the landlord, and we're in the subject of nursing home possibility came up, and I told Joe, I said, you cannot put Jerry in a nursing home. I said, you know, his nature is such that he's not a passive kind of guy that can live in that environment, and as terrible as this loss is, it's a consolation that this didn't go that route, because Jerry would have been so miserable, I think, had life gone that direction. So I think he's definitely in a better place than some of the places that we had discussed as possibilities. You know, I remember the first time I met Jerry, it has to be 36, 37 years ago, and my parents we had the pleasure of the Bulgatzes, Mr. and Mrs. Bulgatz, and Joe and Jerry we shared a Pesach Seder together many decades ago. It was the first time I met Jerry, you know, and you know, Jerry kind of, you know, it didn't take long to get to know Jerry. He could be charming one moment, sort of explosive another moment, and you know, and it took a little, you know, there's one thing about Jerry, you didn't have to like guess what kind of guy he was. He let you get to know him and who he was. And I remember at the time reaching out to him about joining the Ark, and thank God it was really a beautiful relationship. The Ark, he had a big circle of friends there. He, as a matter of in an interesting twist of events, his caseworker in the Ark was also his caseworker who we hired years later from St. Francis. So he really had this like interesting continuity of care also for, you know, 30 plus years, I think. And you know, one of the things that you know, I came to appreciate about Jerry was he didn't have an artificial bone in his body. You know, all of us go to work and we interact with people, and you put on a smile, and you know, the faker-eye that's part of survival in everyday life. Jerry did not have that. Jerry said what was on his mind. He very often said things that I would have liked to have said, but I wouldn't have had the guts to say it. But you know, and he was always true to himself. And there was something, you know, unique about that, and special. That, you know, he's one of those people that really was. He was always the real thing, you know. And as much as it might have been sometimes a little bit inconvenient to have him speak his mind in a candid way that he could, at the same time, there was, you know, there's a lot to be learned from that. You know, that we're always pretending different things, and you know, sometimes you got to say what you got to say, and Jerry said it. You know, in Jewish tradition, you know, we talk. One of the expressions for heaven is the Olam Ha'emes, the world of truth. You know, here nothing's really what it looks like, but in the, upstairs everything's true. And I think Jerry will be at home there because he was a man of truth. It's an interesting aside. From that Pesach Seder, like I said, almost 4 decades ago, Jerry befriended my mother at the Seder, and over the course of the years, he kept up a relationship, and he would call her and sometimes let off steam or speak about things. And my mother also had a nice relationship. She also kept a very nice relationship with Joe all these years, up till her passing 2 years ago. And so share an odd observation that, you know, Jerry would, one of the things he would do is every Wednesday night we have a dinner at the Ark. So he would always come to the dinner, and he had a nice circle of friends. And and when I'd look across the room, Jerry would stand out from the rest of the crowd. In one way, Jerry You know, it's funny. I only noticed this like in the environment of the Ark, where a lot of people are financially strapped and they don't dress so well. Jerry was, first of all, very handsome, and he always looked like a bank president or a CEO of a company, and he carried himself with that dignity. It was unusual. It's not something I around the Ark, and he really stood out in a crowd of, we sometimes have 40, 50 people at that dinner, and but Jerry stood out in a special way, and I think that inner dignity was unique. That got him through. He really was heroic. He worked. He was a proud Jew. Went to shul. Got through, and he was really wrestling with a lot of very, very difficult demons. And to his credit, he was really heroic. What he did in his life. And I'll end with this week we read Parsha Shlach in the Torah. It says that Moses sent 12 Jews on a special mission, and 10 got diverted, and they just forgot what they were doing, and they messed up terribly. And only 2 kind of kept their eye on the ball, and I think Jerry was sent to this world, like Joe said, with a mission, and it wasn't always a mission that we would have necessarily imagined for him, but it was his mission, and he did it well. Kept his eye on the ball, and in his memory should be a blessing. And I think that there's really were a lot of beautiful things to learn from Jerry. I'm still, I have to be honest with you, I'm still in shock that Jerry's not with us. This is the worst for a mom to be at a child's funeral, and we were talking last night. Joe and Esther stopped by. That when your kids get older, they're independent, and you're a parent always, but you're not as engaged. And with Jerry, you were so engaged in his life, day to day and hour to hour, and he got to this point only because of your support and love. So this it makes. This makes this loss that much worse. Yes, maybe we'll lower the casket and get have the brothers come. We'll say. Okay. We'll do Kriya now.
Okay.
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 So on the right side. Okay, and give it a little yank. Yeah, right there. There we go. Okay. And is it Baruch? Dayan. Yeah, so we're going to tear it a little.
Okay, when the Israel, nobody should come up to the grave until they put this on Monday, and then they
Okay, we'll say there's a blessing to say with the tearing. So let's say it together. Baruch, Atah, Adonai, Eloheinu, Melech Haolam, Dayan, Ha'emet. Blessed is God, can you remember the two jars. Something doesn't make any sense to us. Once they put the lid on here, so then maybe the brothers all pour a little of this earth from Israel. Wait till,
So let's do it?
wait till they put the lid on.
Okay.
You pour it on top.
Okay.
At the very end. Well, after card. Yeah, and the store also. Yeah. It's it's customary to put a little earth on, and I always feel like we're kind of tucking, like you're tucking in a loved one for a long rest. So if anybody would like, please come and step up and put a little earth on. And then,
Ladies and gentlemen, you need to wear gloves before you touch that. That's the cemetery's policy, and it's a good policy.
yeah, you and your brothers should do this.
Yeah.
Yeah, pour a little on, and then yeah, each you.
The whole thing?
Do half and half. You probably down to the rest. Okay. Anybody else wants to participate? Otherwise, we'll have the staff fill in the grave, and then we'll say the Kaddish.
Dirty gloves I'll take back.
You get extra large next time. You get it for everything. Yeah. Oh, that's nice. My father, they give me a height, they gave me big hands. Hand sanitizer would work too.
And once you participate, go ahead and come back behind the chairs if you would.
Maybe 2 weeks ago, I did they were not having me here.
Dirty gloves I'll take.
Melodia.
Okay, so If people gather in a little bit, we'll say the Kaddish together. We'll say the burial Kaddish on the back of the card here. Yiskadal, Yiskadash, Me Rabba.
Amen.
Yallah, Divrasi, La Ikarata, Oda Chaya, Masaya, Oda Shachlel, Hole, La Mifra, Ichaya, Ne Karta, Yerushalayim. Makar, Pulchana, Dukhra, Ma'ara, La Sava, Pulchana, Kadisha, Ishmael, Asrei, Ziva, Kari, Shinte, Yatsmach, Korkanei, Yurei, Mishichay, Bechayechon, Uviyomechon, Bechayei, Hol Beis, Yisrael, Bagalav, Bizman, Kari, Vimro, Amen, Yehesh, Shmei, Rabba, Vara, Olam Omer Maya, Yisbarach, Yisabach, Yisbahar, Yismam, Yisnaseh, Yisadar, Yisalem, Yisalal, Shmeid Kurusha, Brechu, Leila, Min Kol, Berchasa, Visharasa, Tushbachasa, Menechamasa, Da'amiram, Ba'ama, Vimru, Amen. Yehesh, Shmo Barabba, Shmin Shmai, V'chayim, Aleinu, Yalka Yisrael, Vimru, Amen. Oseh Shalom Berumav, Uyas Shalom Aleinu, Yalka Yisrael, Vimru, Amen. And Rabbi Weinstein is going to say the Kel Mole, and we'll end with a Shura, saying words of consolation to the bereaved.
El Malei Rachamim, Shochem, Bamromim, Hamitzei Menucha Nechon Al Kanfei Ashchina, B'malos Kedoshim, V'torim Gezor, V'kir Mazir Misnishmas, Yaakov Lei Ben Chaim Shalom, Sheholach Liolamo, Ba'avur She'anachnu Mispalim B'adaskos Nishmaso, V'gan Eden Tehei Menuchaso, L'chein Ba'al Rachamim, Yasireo B'sesha Knafov Leolamim, V'yisur B'tzur HaChaim Misnishmaso, Adonai Hu Nachalaso, V'yanoch b'shalom ha'mishkavo, v'nomar, Amen. O merciful God who dwelleth on high and are full of compassion, grant perfect rest beneath the shelter of your divine presence among the holy and pure who shine in the brightness of the firmament, to our departed brother Jerry, who has gone to his eternal home. May his soul be bound up in the bond of everlasting peace. Grant that his memory be a shining beacon for us here on earth for many years to come. Amen.
Ladies and gentlemen, if I could have all of our guests come and line up one side over here with Bill, one side here with me, facing each other.
Sorry, I can't get it around.
Yeah. Yeah, I thought if you're going the right way.
I'm going back to keep it down.
Sorry. Go ahead. Yeah. First? Okay, we say together the classic constellation. Hamakom, Yinachem, Eshem, Shov, Shar, Vele, Sion, Yerushalayim.
Ladies and gentlemen, let's end our service. Thank you for attending today. You may return to your cars.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, Olivia.
Thank you. Take care. Everybody stay healthy.
You too. Thank you.
I think you took back.
Jerome, you need to take me or not? Come on,